Hello and welcome back to another great guest slot with me, Robin Harris of Equenergy Wild Wellbeing. So obviously we are doing this initially live here on Wild Wisdom Wellbeing, and I am super excited today. If you saw my post, you'll see my post earlier talking about this, you'll see there how excited I am about this because I'm passionate about gut health and keeping ourselves healthy in that way. And so today I have with me the lovely Caroline Peyton of Peyton Principles, and you're on Facebook, I believe, Caroline, as Peyton Principles Natural Health. Yeah, so just as a brief introduction, Caroline, I know that you do so much amazing work, but from your website, I realized that you qualified in 2009 as a naturopathic nutritional therapist, and we'll go into that in a little bit more depth later, and that you also set up the Naturopathic Nutrition Association, otherwise known as the NNA.
Yeah.
And you have been the owner, principal, and senior tutor of the Natural Healthcare College. And I love that there's so much there that's based around both nutrition and nature being one of my great passions for our well-being. And that then you went on to chair the NNA for 7 years, and that you are now the lead on the college accreditation team.
Yes, I do.
So some amazing work there. But maybe if you would just start by telling us a little bit about who is Caroline and why did you come to be so passionate about nutrition and gut health particularly?
Yeah. So, well, thank you for inviting me on today. I really love, as I hope this will come across in the next period of time that we're talking, I really love sharing my knowledge and experience with people and about, natural health and naturopathy and nutrition. So growing up, I was an overweight child. I was sort of, you go through your teens and you start to get into thinking that it's all about being thin and an approach from that perspective. But I was really interested always in picking up magazines and reading about nutrition and health, healthy articles. So that's my background. But actually, I ended up in corporate life for 20 years, very stressful, really demanding, no thanks, no rewards. Financially, it might have been okay, but generally you don't really get a lot back from it. And I was getting less and less satisfied with that life. And I can only describe it as like a light bulb moment going off, that I was like, do you know what else do I want to do in my life? Nutrition. I want to go and study nutrition. And at that point in time, back in 2005, I started my studies in naturopathic nutrition, not just in nutritional therapy, but naturopathic nutrition. And that's my background. And having done that studies, and then I went on and qualified subsequently and doing a full naturopathy diploma as well, is this whole belief really that health starts in the gut. Well, actually, naturopaths always said disease starts in the gut, and I like to turn it around and said health starts in the gut. And through all my years in practice since 2009, alongside owning a college, but I was always also seeing clients on a one-to-one basis, and that's what I do today, is that I've focused a lot around digestion and gut health, because unless we can digest our food and absorb our nutrients and really keep the gut and the gut microbiome really healthy, it will have consequences on our overall health. So in a nutshell, that's a bit about me and my background and how I ended up doing what I do today.
And I completely agree. Our gut, we're now starting to have more of an understanding of how and why and how this plays out. But gut health is the basis of health, really, isn't it? Without that, we don't have certainly we don't have our optimum health and well-being. But if it continues for any length of time, we just don't have our health and well-being, do we? It just starts to fall apart.
You're right. When the science is catching up with what naturopaths have always believed, so the science is there now, and the amount of studies and papers that are coming out around the microbiome is phenomenal, really. And that's why, obviously, what I study and get to read about is consequently reading more and more and more and more about this. But the links between gut and the brain, and the links between autoimmune conditions and obesity, we just keep learning more and more and more, and trying to understand about these microbes that exist within us. There are 10 times the microbes as there are cells in our body. We have trillions of them. And, you know, I sort of talk to some of my clients, or when I talk on my own Facebook group, about who's controlling who. And I really do believe that they are actually controlling us, but they can only control us, and they can only keep us healthy if we take care of them. Because if we don't learn how to feed them and nurture them and take care of them, then it gets really out of balance, in what I could go on and talk about all day. But it all starts to get out of balance. And, you know, it's a bit like tending your garden. We have our plants and we have our weeds. And if we don't take care of that, the weeds start to take over. And unfortunately, if we don't understand and learn how to take care of our gut health, and particularly this microbiome, then it can really start to get out of balance. And the more pathogenic strains of bacteria can start to dominate. And this is where health things can start to appear elsewhere in the body, which we may not realize could be, not always and not in totality, but can be linked back to what's going on in the gut.
Absolutely. And the work that I do, Meta-Consciousness, it looks at how everything is designed to be in balance. And actually, our bodies are designed to work in synergy with the environment when everything is in balance. Yes. And that, talking about bacteria, we have this kind of concept of there are good bacteria and there are bad bacteria. But like weeds, it's that there are bacteria that are designed to be working in a certain way in a certain place. Weeds are just plants that we don't want there.
Yes.
You know, those plants, the things that we call weeds, are actually often plants that bring us a lot of health and well-being benefits.
Yeah,
things like dandelions.
Nettles.
Yes, nettles, a fabulous example. So they have their place, but that's not necessarily in our garden, or to a great degree in our garden. It might be nice to have a little wild corner, and so it's finding the right balance for
it's all about balance. Everything is all about holistically, it's all about balance. And yes, you're absolutely right. We are never, ever, ever, you know, I do a lot of stool testing with clients and look at the results, and you will never get a picture where there is no pathogenic strains of bacteria, because that's just not realistic. And it's quite interesting, actually. Parasites, you know, one of the stool tests I do looks at 4 different types of parasites, but we're now beginning to understand that 2 of those strains of parasites are actually seen as being symbiotic. They could bring us some potential benefits, or at least not doing any harm. But maybe as research goes on, these things that we call parasites may actually be delivering some benefits to us. They're not all like, oh, got to get rid of those, got to wipe them out, got to destroy them. And actually, when we look at this whole pattern, it's about, you can't just strip out the bad ones unless you bring into more abundance these other more beneficial strains as well.
And I think that was really what I was getting at, that we have this concept of these are good and these are bad. And then we start to think bacteria equals bad. But that's not the case.
No.
And we are starting, as the more that we open the door to explore these things and realize, actually, we are 10 times more bacteria in what we think of as me. There's a book, 1 in 10, about the fact that only that 10% of cells in my body is actually genetically me, versus these others. They're on our skin, they're in our guts, they're everywhere.
They're around our lungs.
Everywhere, but actually they're working in synergy with us. And even when we talk about what we call the pathogenic ones, they in their own way are serving a benefit for us in the work that I do, the perspective that I take, that when I need to clear something out, when I need to do something, my body's needing to get back to balance, the pathogenic, as we call them, bacteria actually can support that.
Yes.
As can what we call viruses or what we call fungi. We tend to think of them as bad, and we then try to eradicate them, as you said, but then we may be using chemicals that are more toxic. We've got this thing of, I mustn't feel pain. Pain is bad. Disease is bad. Dis-ease is bad. But actually, quite often, those symptoms come in the part of the cycle, which some people call the disease cycle, but I like to turn it on its head, as you've done, and call it the well-being cycle.
Yes.
That is just a part of our bodies getting back to balance.
Oh,
and that's
absolutely.
why we get colds and stomach upsets.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh God, absolutely. You know, it's like taking if you've got a temperature, we've got to take something to get the temperature down. You've got to do something. Naturopaths would say the body, this is the healing cycle. The heat is created to try and help overcome this bacteria, virus, whatever's going on in the body. And unless it gets to a dangerously high level, you know, live with it, allow the body to do that. The problem is we lead such busy lives, is that we don't allow ourselves to take ourselves to bed, to have a day or two, to go through this, like where we're sweating and, you know, we've got this temperature, to allow the body to do its work. Because that's what the body, like you said, the body is trying to go through a healing process. And the body is amazing if we allowed the time and understood a little bit more about what it's trying to do. Yeah.
And like with so many things, if we don't take the time at the time, we may end up having to take more time later.
More time.
And the medicines quite often that we take or that we're given, like I was listening to Gabor Mate in the Wisdom of Trauma movie recently, and he was talking about if you have a bad knee, they give you steroids. If you have eczema, they give you steroid cream. If you have asthma, they give you a steroid inhaler. But steroid is like cortisol. So it's effectively, and caffeine and these energy drinks or flu medications, they contain caffeine as well, and pain medications, what they're actually doing is putting us back into the stress cycle and the stress part of the cycle. And when we're in there, we're designed not to feel pain, feel sick, because that's fight or flight, that's survival. And if we felt ill when we were there, we probably wouldn't be able to fight or flee or survive. So it's only when we can rest, when we can move out of
digest, the healing phase. Yeah.
I tend to call it rest and repair, but yes,
I call it rest and digest, probably because it's my
But that links back to what you were saying earlier about when we are focusing on our health and our well-being and our gut biome, we need not to be stressed. So for people to get a deeper appreciation of how important and why, not just, I'll be fine, I'll work through my week and the week is stressful and then I'll take 2 days to recover over the weekend. We really just need to be addressing stress all the time, and to be aware as well, I think that we often have that kind of background stress that we don't even notice anymore, but it's still having an impact on our digestive system.
It's about trying to become more mindful to it all, isn't it? And, taking a step back. I say to clients around, I sort of loosely use the words mindful eating, but it's about, and I'm trying to explain to clients that the process of digestion starts before we even put food in our mouth. The sight and the smell of the food is sending messages to the brain, that sends messages to the stomach that food's coming in a nanosecond. And so it can start to release digestive secretions. And, we don't allow ourselves the time. We're too busy watching TV, we're on our phones. We don't mindfully think this is the time for eating. And I'll say to clients, just try and do a little bit of deep breathing before eating, just to try and calm everything down, to try and, just calm, focus, just to get into the mindset of this is the time now for eating. Because eating in itself, that rest and digest phase, is really, really important. The body cannot properly digest food when it's stressed, because it's designed to be running away from danger. The stress mode is what it is. That's what it was designed to do. And so it's not designed to be digesting food. When we were cavemen, we ate food when we were safely in our caves and we were relaxed. We weren't designed to be eating food when we're trying to run away from danger from a tiger, is what we still use those terms. So our stress that we experience today is no different to the historic stress that we had, is it? And yet we don't allow, we don't recognize it. And I think it's often I see sometimes in clients, I ask the questions about how they feel stressed. Are they stressed? Where they put it on a scale of 1 to 10, what's stressed. And I see it in certain clients that they'll say, no, I'm fine. But I know they're not. And some people just internalize it and they don't realize that actually they are quite stressed. And I think that can be more potentially harmful by not recognizing it, internalizing it. Like you say, it's going on in the background all the time. Yeah.
And our bodies are only designed to be in that fight or flight for 10 to 15 minutes. Yeah. And you'll see animals, they're such great teachers, I've learned so much from them, where they will, if they're stressed, they will run away if they can, or they'll go into faint or freeze until the danger has passed. Yeah. And then quite often they will shake. They'll run or they'll shake and they'll get rid of that energy. And then they come back down to balance. Yes. And to, right, I'm calm now, because they're conserving energy. Yeah. And even you will see on the wildlife programs and things where you'll have maybe a herd of antelope and a lion is walking past the herd and the lion's not hunting and they know it. The herd of antelope know it. So everybody just keeps an eye on everybody else, but nobody's getting stressed. Nobody's running. Everybody's conserving energy, because out in the wild you have to, and we would have had to as hunter-gatherers back in the caveman days. We would have got up our energy to do the hunting, or if we had to run away. But apart from that, we'd have been sitting with our family or, you know, just chilling. Yes. And that, as you say, back in the cave when we felt safe, that would have been when we did our eating. Exactly. But nowadays we have these things that are not saber-toothed tigers in the literal sense, but they're there all the time and we feel under pressure. Yeah, exactly.
Stressors all the time.
Different kinds of stressors, but our reptilian brain and our hormonal systems haven't caught up with the fact that actually they're not life or death.
Exactly.
Our gut brain is still thinking life or death.
And that's how it treats it. Exactly. Yeah. And so it puts it in stress mode. If you're in stress mode, it's preparing for fight or flight, for running away from danger or fighting. It does that, you know, and that's why the heart will beat faster. And, you know, this release glucose into the bloodstream, the blood pressure goes up and the lungs are prepared. And every other organ in the body that's seen as non-essential, it starts to drain resources and energy, blood supply to the gut is drained away from that. So that's why, you know, we cannot, I'll go back to digesting because that's what I know and love best, but we can't optimally digest food when we're under this element of stress. And yet, you know, I explain to clients, you know, we can't avoid it. We can't avoid all our stress, but it's important to recognize if we are doing what we can to take away excess stressors. Because you only have to pick up your phone and it's just also depressing what you're reading about, isn't it? And that's going to make you feel anxious and uptight and a bit stressed. So, you know, we have to do our best. We have to do whatever is in our own control to try and alleviate excess stresses and do what we can to calm the body down for when we want to eat or at any time of day. At any time of day, yeah.
And I think you've raised a couple of really important points there. The fact that we have this thing that goes everywhere with us, and why we still call it a phone when it's so much more than that these days. So with constant stuff bombarding us, it's pinging all the time with another alert for Facebook or the news and all that's in the news and everything. Unless you make a conscious decision, I'm turning my phone off or I'm putting it in another room or whatever, so that it's not there, it's not constantly grabbing my attention. I just have to check it another time, or it's pinged, what's that news item now? And the news, obviously, it's nice that we can keep up with what's going on in the world, and the world doesn't feel such a big place anymore. But at the same time, years and years ago, we wouldn't have known what was going on in Afghanistan, or we wouldn't be worrying about, you know, previously what was Trump's latest tweet, or any of those things. We would just have been getting on with the stuff that's in the day. And as it says somewhere, I believe in the Bible, about the stress of the day is just enough for that day. Just focus on that you don't need to be dealing with anything more. And in that sense, being mindful of just, I'm focusing on this present moment of now. Whereas these days, we're just being pulled off in all sorts of directions and future and past. And we need to get back, I think, to being mindful, being present with our food, tasting it, enjoying it. And you were saying before about we don't give ourselves the time to sit with our food and how important it is for our bodies to prepare. And we stick things in the microwave as well. We have instant food versus if you think about, I'm reading Eat, Pray, Love at the moment. If you think about that movie where she goes to Italy and the family come together and they make meals together and then they just sit and they do nothing.
Funny enough, I just saw that film only a few weeks ago, actually.
Yeah, it comes back around, doesn't it? And when they have that practice of non fa niente, we're just enjoying the doing nothing, the dolce vita, all these wonderful kind of concepts that maybe it's a northern hemisphere thing as well. We don't have the wonderful heat and everything of the Mediterranean belt.
The heat slows everything down as well, doesn't it? It makes you a bit more chilled.
Yes, they do say that, don't they? So the just being mindful about what we're choosing to eat, how we're preparing it, that preparation that does so much for our body, because we smell the food, we see the food, we're cooking the food, we're ready for the food, we enjoy the food. And if we can enjoy it with family,
if you enjoy it with family and you're sitting around a table and you're chatting, then you're going to take longer to eat it, because the next stage is just to, I'm not talking about chewing your food 100 times, but eating more slowly. Chew your food a little bit more. Your stomach doesn't have teeth, is what I used to tell my daughters when they were younger. Simple things. Little things like that. Like, yeah, of course. All these things are so important. And we're just talking about cooking and eating, and people start stressing. I'll talk about nutrition a bit. People start stressing about what to eat, what can I eat, what's bad for me, what's good for me, weight and all this sort of thing. But we've completely forgotten that eating should be an enjoyable pleasure. I love eating. I love my food. Everyone's confused about what to eat, and just forgets that actually it's just lovely to be able to just cook a nice meal and sit and eat a nice meal. And that's what we should be doing. And even that's become almost stressful for some people now, which is really, really sad that we've reached that stage that people are scared to can't have red meat, it's bad for me, or we've all got to be vegan, or to save the planet, or do you know what I mean? I can't eat a potato because of all the stuff, it's all become, everyone's got all this like stress in their heads about what they can and can't eat all the time. And
which again, I think goes back to the idea of we have so much information at our fingertips and it changes all the time. Eggs are good for you, eggs are bad for you. Exactly. Cholesterol is bad for you. Cholesterol's fine. And all of these things. So it's very difficult to weed out if you're not a specialist, and probably even for the specialists, what is it this week that I have to keep up with? It's very difficult for the rest of us, just ordinary people, to weed out what information is accurate and what is misinformation or not the latest information. They've got new thoughts on it this week. And I think it's very much about what works for me as an individual.
Again, going back to listen to your own body, isn't it?
Indeed. I choose to be a vegan because that's what works for me. Because I didn't like eating meat for a vast range of reasons. So I thought, why am I? It was one of those light bulb moments one day. Well, why am I eating it?
Yes.
Kind of duh. So I decided not to. Yes. I decided not to see how that worked for me. And actually, even my mum said, you look so much healthier now that you're choosing.
There is no one size fits all for everybody at all. You need to listen to your body. I've just come off a call with another client, and we were actually having a conversation. I won't talk about her personal circumstances, but I actually said to her, I actually think you need a little bit more red meat in your diet for her particular needs. I think that's what you need right now. And she said, that's really good to hear. She said, I actually like a steak and I like lamb. And, for those who are vegan, that's really hard to hear for some people, but I respect each individual's and I look at what each individual needs. And some people thrive on different types of diets, and it's actually what they need for their needs right now will change. Actually, change is not going to necessarily stay the same, and it could change, but it is getting back in tune and listening to your body. And when you start to do that, you start to recognize what you feel better eating, what gives you more energy, more vitality, all of that. Yeah, very important.
I think, as you've been kind of saying there, it's really important to listen to your body, to choose what feels right for you and go with it, at least for a while, and see how you feel, and then revisit and review, but not to get stressed about your choices.
Yes.
So if you want to eat meat, but that's difficult for various reasons, maybe look into where is a really good source of meat. So maybe organic meat or free range.
Absolutely.
So that if I'm not comfortable with the
exactly, the welfare and all of that, which is really important.
And the same with vegetables, because knowing that I'm eating vegetables because I want to get as many really good nutrients. Maybe the supermarket vegetables, which are intensively farmed, don't have those nutrients. And the knowledge of so many people in the West are overfed but undernourished.
Oh gosh,
and we have these cravings, and we're becoming obese often, on a generic across the population. But is that because our food doesn't have the goodness that it used to have? So our bodies are still craving. It's quite right that we're feeling hungry. It's our bodies telling us, I need this nutrient. And it's not in the fast food because it's over-processed. It's maybe not even in the fresh fruit and vegetables because they're maybe intensively farmed. So looking for the best sources of food that we can get, and then eating that with joy and appreciation.
It's so difficult though, isn't it, Robin? Because everyone's so busy. I mean, at least in the last 18 months, people have spent most people, not everybody, I do appreciate that, have spent more time at home. So if you've had that little bit more time at home, you've not been traveling long distances to get to commute to work, you've had a little bit more time to think about food and cook food. But, generally people are busy. So it's not easy. Some people have more time than others. And I do try and help people in trying to explain, you don't have to cook elaborate dishes. It doesn't have to be really, really complicated. I'm all about the vegetables. I'm all about going on about diversity in colour, and lots of vegetables is absolutely critical. But it doesn't need to be complicated. You can throw loads of vegetables in the oven and roast them while you're, if you want.
My favourites.
Yeah, or stir frying, and you can stir fry things really quickly, and it doesn't have to be complicated dishes. You can keep it quite simple. We've just got so far removed, haven't we, from when we were growing up. Let's go back to, let's call it meat and two veg, because that's really what it was in those days. And I was not, I don't eat red meat now. That's my personal choice. I'm telling other people sometimes I think that's what they need, but I haven't eaten red meat since I was about 17. Bit of a personal choice then. In fact, I was a pescatarian, and then only more recent years have I eaten some chicken, but I'm mostly fish, but lots of vegetables in my diet. But it's about keeping it really simple. We're just too far removed. When we were growing up, we didn't eat complicated, fancy dishes, did we? It was very straightforward food, but we did get our vegetables, and maybe it was some meat or maybe it was some fish. And we were all so much healthier. We were moving more as well as a nation. That's part of it. Moving, I use the word movement, not exercise.
Absolutely. And that was
I know you did that.
You allowed me to post. Thank you. It's coming out for anybody who hasn't yet signed up for my newsletter. Caroline has got this fantastic, really worth reading blog that I have put into the newsletter. Sorry, carry on.
About movement, not exercise. It's so hard for people. Like you say, we're overloaded with information. We think we need to follow the latest diet. But no, come back and listen to your own body. What do you feel better eating? Did you feel better when you were trying to be vegan or vegetarian, or did you feel better when you actually were eating some red meat, but you took it out because you made a conscious decision, or you thought it was better for your health to do that? We're not all the same. We're all unique individuals. And it's just trying to step back a little bit, listen to your body. And it doesn't have to, really stress a point. It doesn't have to be complicated. The other thing I'd just like to say about that is actually around habits and trying to set and create new habits. Nothing's easy when you try and create some change, like just sitting at the table and trying to think about taking some time and turning off the phone and doing all that sort of thing. But when you try and create new habits, it's this model, which I can't remember what it's called, which is where you go from being unconsciously incompetent to become consciously competent. And you go through this phase of initially you become consciously incompetent. So at that point, you're like, oh, I've started eating and I've forgotten to take my time, and I'm in front of the TV again. And at that point, you're becoming a little bit aware that you need to do something differently, but it hasn't yet become a habit. And then as you move around that, you become more consciously aware that you're creating the good habit, and eventually through repetition, it unconsciously becomes that new habit. But it does take a bit of time, and I really love that model. And I really understand that they talk about learning new skills. You go through that process. And I think it's the same when you're trying to set new habits. You're very conscious to start with, and you're conscious that you're not getting it right, or you're not doing it every day. But the more you can start, you're consciously thinking about it, then the more eventually it starts to become an ingrained habit, which I think is, in one thing at a time as well. Don't try and do too many things at once.
Yeah, small steps that feel
Small
achievable. So
steps.
working smart, something
Yeah,
that feels realistic and
yeah,
achievable and measurable and all
exactly.
of those things. And another
Yes.
thing they say is that it takes a minimum of 21 days, probably more like a month, to create a new habit. And
Yeah,
old habits are harder to break than it is to create a new habit. So
I'm
when
sure.
you're making a change, don't think about breaking the old one. Think about what you want to create. So
Yeah,
maybe visualize, which is a great way
that's
of
a good thing.
making that change without
Mm,
actually doing anything. It's all starting
yes,
in your head,
visualizing that. Mm,
and not fighting against and resisting what you did before, but just,
yeah,
this is my new way, and being
yes.
open and curious and compassionate with yourself when, oops, I've gone back, I've got my phone
Don't beat
open and
yourself up
I'm
about it.
Facebooking. No, it's not worth it, is it?
No,
It's only going
it's
to add to
like,
the stress for
and
a start.
that's why I hate diets. Oh gosh, it's about trying to create healthy eating habits,
It
and
is.
everything in moderation. And I'm a great believer in this like sort of Pareto rule. 80% of the time, your habits, 80, maybe 90, whatever. But most of the time, your habits are good. You're trying to live a healthy lifestyle. That's not just about what you're eating. Some days are not going to be perfect. Doesn't have to be. I'll eat cake. I like a glass of wine. I'm not perfect, but we shouldn't need to be perfect. What's perfection anyway? It's about
Stress
trying to,
is what it is
yeah,
quite often.
exactly. So there's nothing wrong. And this whole thing about people go on a diet and then they think, oh, I've done something bad. They beat themselves up and then they feel miserable. And oh, that's just not good habits. It's little habits, small steps. Takes time to change something. Do one thing at a time, and over time you can then introduce something else, and yeah, and eventually, and listening to your body, it's all those
Yeah.
things. Keep it
And I often,
simple. Mm,
indeed, and I often say to people that it's not just about what you eat, it's about how you eat. So it's about the relaxation, it's about the appreciation and
yes,
enjoyment, and the how it makes you feel, and the taking the time, and that you are looking for the nutrition and the nourishing and nurturing
mm,
aspect of food. So you're focusing on that, keeping yourself mindful, just, oh, I'm nourishing and I'm nurturing my body, versus how many calories are in this food,
oh,
and
don't want to
what did
count.
I have for lunch? Can I afford to eat this for
Right.
my dinner? And can I have a glass of wine? And all of that stress, which
Mm,
is just
just don't need
counterproductive,
it,
isn't it?
exactly. Yeah, just don't need any of that, and when we're stressed, the chances are is if you are trying to lose a few pounds here or there, but you're more likely to be holding on to your weight and not
Yes.
sort of letting it go.
And that's
um
what we're only beginning really to appreciate, isn't it? That if we are stressed, we've got the cortisol, we've got the adrenaline, but the cortisol is actually causing us to hold weight. And
exactly.
the diet foods do the same thing.
Yes.
So get away from all of that. Let it all go.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Have a wander around the supermarket. Don't, or go if you can get your local food, local markets, and go and get some fresh vegetables. See what's in season, and when you go, then pick things up, and everything just looks so much better when you go to a market, doesn't it? And you look at all the vegetables and things
And we're so
there.
fortunate these days. I live in Abergavenny now, or just outside, and we've just been to the market, and they've got, those old fashioned carrots that are coming back now. They're all the different colours, and they've
Oh,
got, like you say, the local foods, and they are in season, and they haven't got many air miles, and
yeah.
they're probably organically grown. We've got a great local farmer who does those boxes that get delivered as well. And Bristol, I used to live in, they had the big fruit and veg market down in St. Philip's. So there are loads of places to go, whether you live more in the country or you live in a town. There are more places to go now where you can access these sorts of things.
Yes.
People are becoming
And I think I also, this organic is wonderful, but for people listening, it's expensive. You're feeding a family of 4, whatever, it's really expensive. So there's a great website. Well, you can Google this. It's by the EWG, which is the Environmental Working Group. But if you Google Clean 15 Dirty Dozen, which I love that name, Clean 15 Dirty Dozen, you can look on there and you can see which vegetables, which are the dirty dozen, i.e. the ones that are sprayed the most fertilizers and pesticides. And then you've got the Clean 15, the ones that have the least amount of things sprayed. So I think that's a really useful guide for people in that, you can't afford to go out and get everything organic and it's really expensive. So have a look at that, because then at least you might think, oh gosh, those dirty dozen, that's where I'll decide to invest my money to go more organic, because they're going to be cleaner, less pesticides and chemicals on them. And the Clean 15, you may think, well, I can get away with eating those because they're fairly clean. And that's a great website, the Clean 15 Dirty Dozen, but it's the ewg.org, I think it is. It's
brilliant.
a great,
that's really good. Yeah, I've come across that concept before. It's really good to know.
Yeah.
And also, I was reading on your website that you have a kind of I don't know what you would call it, but a quote from you, shall I say, that true health comes when we feel emotionally, spiritually, and physically in balance. So we were talking about the balance, and I just kind of wanted to talk about that a little bit more. I love that you talk about the fact that it needs to be all aspects of our being, effectively. So the mind, the body, the spirit, the physical, the emotional, and the spiritual, that we need to bring all of these together. So it's supporting well-being for all of these.
That naturopathy is based around, it was once described to me by one of my tutors, who is a brilliant lady, as a 3-legged stool. And if one of the legs is slightly out of balance, the stool is going to start rocking. And if one leg happens to be broken off, the whole stool is going to fall over. It's keeping it all in balance. And the 3 legs to that stool is around the emotional and mental is one aspect of it. One is to do with structural. So we need to really think about our structure and our posture, because the nerves pass out through the vertebrae and they can be impinged, and that the nerves are feeding our organs. So we need have to think very much about our structure. And the other side of that is what we call chemical, but that's to do with nutrition and elimination, hydration. And that 3-legged stool, you've got to try and be aware of all of that and keep it all in balance. So as naturopathy teaches us about all of that. My expertise is around nutrition, and obviously I specialize in gut health, but around nutrition. And I very much have, through my training, I've done a bit of bodywork training, but I would recognize if someone had put on their case history questionnaire that they'd been in a car accident and they were still getting some problems, and I think, well, I know that those where they had problems, that feeds down to the digestive organs. I would say, do you know what? I think you should go and see an osteopath or someone. I think you should go and have that looked at. And equally, I'm very much in tune with this, I can't say, I'm very much aware of the spiritual, but I'm not an expert in that area. But the emotional and the mental side of things, we've got to take care of that. We can't be in balance, and really healthy and well unless we take care of that aspect as well.
And in terms of spiritual, I don't think of spiritual as merely the religious or that kind of spiritual. I read something recently, and it's a quote that I've used in memes and things, that spiritual practice is anything that makes you feel more beautiful.
That's lovely.
Inside, that sense of just expansiveness and connection and being aware of the beauty within everything. Some things might not feel too beautiful or look too beautiful on the outside, on first glance, but when we look deeper, we see that there is a beauty there. And somebody I was just listening to recently was talking about the Japanese art, I can't remember the name of it, but Japanese art, if something is broken, that you put it back together again with gold in the cracks. So
Nice. So
that
you're
you
making
can,
it more beautiful almost, is
yeah,
it?
you're showing the beauty of the fact that it's been broken, and that it's still worth repairing. It's still a beautiful piece, even when it's been repaired. And I don't know who it was that said that where we're broken is where the light comes in. Oh. So, sometimes we feel ashamed of things where we feel we're broken. But actually, that can be, somebody else was saying, where your heartbreak is, that is where your true power is. It's where your purpose is, because when you feel deeply about something, that is what you have to share with the world. If my friend was saying that her heartbreak is looking at animals and what they experience, particularly wildlife. The way that we as the human race are causing problems for the animals.
Yes.
So that is now her purpose. That's what she does. She supports wildlife through her art. Right. So, when we can, again, listening to our bodies and
connecting,
my body telling me, what am I connecting in with? That is, to me, that's our spiritual practice.
Yes. It goes back to what we said at the start, it's about being mindful, and it's having time to stop and pause and think and listen and look. And it's this modern lifestyle that we have, or we had, being busy and filling every moment of every day. We do that with our children as well, don't we? We after school clubs, and they've got to learn this and they've got to learn that. And don't think I had any after school clubs. Just went outside to play with my friends, I think, but
and I read somewhere recently that the amount of time, they did a study and found out how much time kids are expected to be at school sitting in a chair versus years ago, like in maybe our time or our parents' time. So much more time that they're just expected to be sat there still, and that's not natural for kids. Years ago, we would have had longer break times. We would have had maybe a morning break, a lunch break, possibly even an afternoon break, but kids don't get that anymore.
And they don't get much PE time, do they?
Not these days, because with the cuts and the pressures of what they have to cram into the curriculum. Obviously, last year was very different, and it'll be interesting to see how we move that forward, as with all things, with blended working for us adults as well. It's interesting now to see how that might impact on our well-being, because we maybe have more time, fewer pressures, less travel. There's a lot of stuff around working from hubs or from home now, so we don't have to travel quite so far. Is that going to give us back time? A lot of people did gardening, grew their own veg. We were talking about
I know. And it's going to be interesting, like you say, because I think the individuals certainly don't want to have the pressure of being back in an office 5 days a week, or the commuting and all of that. It's how much pressure comes down from the organisations to do that. I think some are very much aware and trying to move to a new model. I'm not sure about others. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out, because I think a lot of individuals will be, if there are companies offering more hybrid working and more flexible working, but other companies are like, no, we want you back in the office, we want you back here 5 days a week. I think people are going, no, thank you, and think about moving.
I think, again, it's an individual thing. So if you're somebody who would like the blended working, perhaps if you're working for a company that doesn't offer it, they'll be voting with their feet and going elsewhere. And then there are some jobs that need people to be in certain places at certain times. So maybe that will attract. So it may, on balance, as again, we're all individuals, maybe we will be better able to find the hole that fits me. So, not being the square peg in the round hole, but finding the shape that works for me. That'd be interesting one. I think there's so much going on at the moment that is potential for really, really positive, good change. So holding the intention that we all start to head that way. And I think it's going to take time, and it's change, which is can be clunky in itself. But
I think there's a lot, energy is very all over the place a bit at the moment, don't you think?
It is, but within that, I think there's potential for really positive change, positive outcome, if we put enough intention into that rather
Yeah.
than sitting in our fear. Because I think if we sit in our fear, then that's maybe what's going to come, because that's where our energy is going.
Very good point. That's really interesting.
So going back to talk about well-being and what gut well-being does for us. So often people will say that they have a IBS type symptoms. I see a lot of this around. But maybe they've been to the NHS, they've had every test under the sun, and nothing's been found. So can you talk a little bit about what might be going on there?
Yeah, a lot of clients come to me at that point, really. They've just frustrated and fed up, exhausted, really, with symptoms they've got, a variety of different types of symptoms. And it's good that they've had the tests, and I'm pleased in a way that nothing has been found. Frustrating for the individual because they've had things like colonoscopies, at least it's been ruled out that there's nothing more serious going on, IBD type conditions or anything else. So that's good. Of course, it's frustrating for an individual. But the problem is that it's not really getting down to the root cause of what's causing the symptoms in the first place. So yes, there could be something that could be picked up, but hasn't. Obviously, nothing's been found. And you've got to start getting back to the basics of digestion, very much like we started off talking about, are you actually digesting your food well? Most people who come to me, I'm not talking about most people, many people anyway, but most people who come to me have suboptimal digestive capability. I go through a series of questions asking people what they're experiencing, where they experience the symptoms, when they experience it. Is it after certain foods all the time? All sorts of different symptoms they may have, which I don't need to go into here. But we need to, and I go right back to basics. Do you take time to eat your food? Many people are going to go, well, occasionally, but actually no. And trying to understand, is there an insufficiency in gastric acid secretions? Is there an insufficiency possibly in secretions of pancreatic enzymes to digest our food? All of this starts to have a knock-on effect. Now, that isn't investigated by the NHS. They can't investigate it with a test. And it's not something that's recognised, really, of having digestive insufficiency. I'd love to know if anyone's ever been to any specialist under the NHS, either GP, to even recognise that as a root cause. We've got to get down to the root cause. Well, the root cause could go beyond the digestive insufficiency. The root cause could be the stress that's hindered the digestive secretions, but there's lots of other reasons as well. So I do a lot of support in that area for people, helping in that area, and then going on to look more in depth at what could be going on in the gut itself. The microbiome, I mentioned stool testing. We need to support and heal the gut lining. There's things like called leaky gut. That's not picked up on any NHS tests. It may sound really weird, but that's another blog and live I did recently. But there's so many different aspects to this. And it's great, as I said, that tests have been done. It's great for me that they've been done. So it's ruled out anything more sinister that would need more serious attention. But there is plenty that we can do that hasn't been explored by the NHS, like digestion, asking the questions. You've got to ask lots and lots of questions. And certainly, my understanding around digestion is, it's just not something that's picked up. I don't know why. It's not recognised at all.
And this is totally bizarre to me, because there's the quote that's attributed to Hippocrates, I think, though I don't think he actually said it from what I've since read. But let food be your medicine, and medicine
be your food.
But doctors don't get taught about nutrition.
No, they're not. 30 minutes or an hour lecture in 5 years.
Yeah. So in that sense, it's not a wonder that they don't pick anything up, because that's not the way their systems take them. And that's the system, unfortunately, that they have to work within. That's the resources.
That's not their fault. I know it's not a blame, not at all. It's not their fault. They don't have any training in it at all. All that people tend to get advised to do if they get gut symptoms, whatever they may be, it's like, why don't you go and try the FODMAP diet?
Yes, it's always the FODMAP.
Let's go and try that FODMAP diet. And yes, some people may get relief. It's difficult to follow. You're taking out so many vegetables and carbohydrates from your diet. It's hard to follow. You may get some relief, but you're actually taking out the fuel that feeds your good bacteria. So it may be helping because it's this is to do with a thing called SIBO, actually, FODMAPs, and it's bacteria that's in the small intestines that shouldn't be there, and these vegetables and food and the sugars start to feed the bacteria and create gases, etc., and all different symptoms. So they'll say try FODMAPs, it may help. But it's almost like putting another sticking plaster over the problem. You haven't actually got rid of the underlying problem. And if you follow it for too long, you're actually having a negative effect on feeding these lovely gut bacteria that are relying on us to give them all the fuel that they need. So it can work, we might be able to do it short term, but that's all they'll ever say. But they don't really understand what FODMAP. They'll just go, I think you should try the FODMAPs because it's a thing that dietitians have been taught and research has been shown it can help relieve symptoms, but it's not getting to the root cause of the problem at all.
Yeah. And I love that you brought that up because that's how I work too. It's to find the root cause, and I go back to find the root cause behind the stress that causes the symptoms.
Exactly. Yeah. So you've got to get back to the root cause.
You do. And like you were saying, it's so important to realize that actually who we're feeding is the bacteria. And the bacteria break down the food, and then that makes it bioavailable to us, the nutrients. So yeah, that's just so essential to me, I think. Yeah. And the fact that people maybe go to the NHS and like that question really was alluding to, thinking that, well, I have all these symptoms, but I'm not getting anything. What do I do? I'm not well. I know that I'm not healthy as I could be, and I'm desperately uncomfortable at times, but I'm not getting any support from the NHS. Do I just have to live with it? Which is quite often the message that is given.
It is the message, and if you look,
different conditions.
If you look on the NHS website and look at IBS, effectively you are actually told to live with it. That's what I find so frustrating, and that's why I'm so passionate about what I do, because you don't need to live with it. Sometimes it can be very quick to find a resolution. I'm not going to use the word cure because this isn't about cure anything. It's about trying to find some resolution and relief to symptoms. So it can be quick. Sometimes it can take a bit longer. Depends how long you may have lived with something for. Sometimes clients come to me, a new client this week, 40 years. 40 years, and suddenly it's like, I've done this, I've done that, I've tried this, I've tried that. Sometimes it goes away a bit, then it comes back, 40 years. So it can be quick, it could take a bit longer, but you don't have to live with things. There are things, techniques and different approaches that can really, really help and make a difference. But we need to invest in our health, and and it can take time. But yeah, there are solutions out there that definitely help people.
And that's so true, that it took us time to get to where we are. It is going to take time to come out the other end.
I don't offer magic pills to people.
No.
Can't do that.
But the understanding that taking that journey from where I now am to where, or at least closer to where I want to be, I'm learning something. I'm getting in touch with my body. I'm developing, and this is a huge thing for me, I'm developing a relationship with my body again, because I have learned through my IBS, my fibromyalgia, my arthritis, whatever it might be, I have learned to hate my body, because I've been told all this time that I have, maybe it's an immunodeficiency label, and my body's attacking me. So what do? I feel angry at my body. I feel frustrated. I feel upset. I no longer love the thing that I'm living in for the rest of my life. So we're at war with kind of internally. So when we can get back to, oh, my body's just been telling me that it needs some support, it needs some help. And I've been doing the best that I knew how at the time, but now I'm learning. I can do this and I can do that. And actually what I'm doing is feeding my bacteria, not me. Oh, and what my body needs, my body as an individual needs, is this. And that's why I love the role of people like yourself, because that's what you do. You come and say to somebody, it's okay. You're okay. There are things we can do. You will feel better.
It's listening. It's absolutely, it's listening to the individual. That's another aspect. It's no fault to GPs. They only get 8-10 minutes with an individual. They don't have the luxury of the time that I do. I spend 90 minutes, an initial consultation with a client, going through a full case history with them and coming up with some initial recommendations, and then we review it and move on and change things. And it's a journey, like you say. But some people, they've not been listened to, or it was just all in your head. I hate that phrase, you know. It's just all in your head. Of course it's not. You know your own body. You know what your body's telling you. And we're here, aren't we, Robin, to listen to that person and go, it's okay. Yes, that's what you feel, and that's what you feel, and that's correct. That's how you feel, and that's okay. And that's the starting point, and we can work with that and move forward from where you are today, acknowledging how they feel. And that alone, having somebody when they're listened to, is almost half the journey in a way, isn't it? That you're going, actually, yeah, that's absolutely, yeah, that's, I understand that, that's fine. And sharing.
You're normal. This is natural. This is
Exactly.
It's not, you're not weird. You're not making it up. And whatever you are feeling in your body, even if it might be psychosomatic, it's still, you're feeling it. It's in your body. It's not all in your head. Exactly. It's real. It's real for you, whatever it's coming from. And we can address that in whatever way we need to address it. And like you're saying, we can take a step and see how that works. And it might be that works for a while and it addresses one issue. And then, another one has come to light, which may have been there all along, maybe part of the healing process. Right, how do we best support that one? Okay, and then the next one and the next one. But all along, you're learning more about yourself. You're getting closer to yourself. You're learning that I'm okay. And for me, part of my journey was being heard. And so I so deeply appreciate how important that is. It made me cry at the time. And that somebody understood that certain foods just were not agreeing with me. Whereas you go to a GP and bless them, I'm not blaming them, but no, there's no such thing as allergies, or the response that you're getting from your body is not an allergy, and an allergy being only anaphylactic shock, whatever else is going on, your IBS or whatever it is, that's not an allergy. So therefore it's stress or something. But then you're not helping me deal with my stress.
No.
So I look back now and I think, yes, it was stress. So help me with my stress. But also be aware that for probably the reasons, like we were talking about gut bacteria, probably mine were so out of balance that I couldn't eat certain foods.
No.
They weren't right for me at that time. And like you're saying, these things change over time. So I might need this nutritional program rather than diet now. And then in 2 years' time, I might need something completely different. But having somebody to guide me through that and to help me know which is right for me now, when it all just seems so shifting sands.
I know. Yeah. Good work. You do lovely work, Robin, what you do with your clients as well.
Thank you. But I think that referring to somebody like you, I think is so, because I think it is just the kind of the core. Our gut, it is our core, isn't it? It's so central to our well-being that having somebody like yourself who can accurately work out what's going on for somebody and how best to support them and walk them through that journey is so crucial.
Yes.
So we've talked a lot about naturopathic approaches and things, but I'm not entirely clear what that word actually refers to. So can you tell us a little bit more about what it means to take a naturopathic approach?
So naturopathy came originally from this concept of nature cure. So very much linked with nature. But naturopathy is not so much a therapy. I'm a nutritional therapist. You've got herbalists, you've got homeopaths, you've got osteopaths, but it's an approach, it's a principle, it's to healing. So naturopathy is understanding that we're all unique. My role is as an educator. I guide people. So inherently within each of ourselves, we've got our vital force, our internal, we've got our own healing. The body can heal itself if it's given the right tools. And less is more. So you don't want to throw everything at it. Sometimes we need a very gentle approach to sort of create that healing process in the body. And yeah, do no harm is a very important principle of naturopathy. So, you know, we don't want to do anything that's going to create harm to the body. So a bit like taking antibiotics, for example, that, as I say, just coming back to gut and the microbiome, you're going to be destroying all those other bacteria. So, you know, it's do no harm. And that we are all unique, and understanding about this approach of structural, spiritual, emotional, and the chemical, nutritional side of things all needs to be in balance. And recognizing all of that. So that's how the naturopathic approach, and very much finding and getting to the root cause, is at the heart of everything, really. So that's naturopathy. So when I trained as a nutritional therapist, it incorporated elements of naturopathy in that, which was quite unusual at the time back in 2005, really. There were only a couple of courses in the UK offering that. And I absolutely loved it. And having done that, I then went on to complete my full training in naturopathy. Well, I've done a little bit around hydrotherapy. I did a little bit about EFT and batch flower remedies, and a little bit around herbs, and a little bit around body work. So I'm no expert in some of these things, but I understand the importance of all of these things. And I will refer people out to others when I think there is a need, because you've got to look at the whole person. You've got to look at them holistically. But getting back to that root cause, always, you know, my brain is always trying to think, well, root cause, you know, have we found the root cause? Is this the root cause? Always. Yeah, so that's what it's all about.
Wonderful. Yeah. Thank you. So I'm sure there are people who have been watching and listening and thinking, oh, I need this. I need some of this kind of support. How do those people get in touch with you, and what sort of ways do you work with people?
Yeah, so most of my work is on a one-to-one basis. I offer different programs and packages. I always have I call it a discovery call, but I always have a call with any potential clients. Initially, I want to know a little bit more about them. They get to listen to me and find out if they actually want to work with me, and I can offer them different programs and different packages. So most of my work is one-to-one. I do have available on my website a very low-cost video recorded course about how to help your IBS, which is £27 or £29, I think. So there's a really low cost sort of little video recorded course that I did through the first lockdown last year. So that's on my website. But yeah, just reach out to me on my website. It's called Peyton Principles. And there's my YouTube channel. It's got so much information on there. I put so many videos on there called Peyton Principles Natural Health, which is the same as my Facebook page and my Instagram page. And my email address is caroline@peytonprinciples.com. So yeah, anyone who wants to, you know, no obligation at all, just have a call. Let me find out a bit more about how I can help you, you know, and yeah, we can take it from there.
That's wonderful, Caroline. Thank you so much. I have so enjoyed our conversation, and feel this is such an important message to share. So thank you.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
And thank you to everybody who has joined us today, or for those who are watching the replay. And if you are watching the replay, just stick in a hashtag replay if you have any questions or comments, and we will get back to you. And if you're interested in the concept we were talking about before, about stress and background stress, and how there may be stress going on in your body that you're not consciously aware of a lot of the time, I'm actually running a workshop on Sunday, the 5th of September from 10 until 1. It'll be here at Equenergy, just outside of Abergavenny. And it's called Stop Striving, Start Thriving. And it looks at stress and its impact and manifestation in our bodies, and how we can begin to turn that around. And if you're interested but not able to make either that date or Abergavenny, then just get in touch with me. I'm very happy to offer it online as well. So thank you so much, everybody, for watching, and tune in. I'll be having another wonderful guest next week. Watch out for the announcements for that. Hope you all have a wonderful weekend. Bye for now.